Look at this shocking sight. This car is only 2 years old and the undercarriage is already this rusty. Can it even be driven? The suspension is nearly falling apart.
This TikToker, possibly under pressure, didn't directly state the brand, but they did mention it's a Chinese-produced new energy vehicle. Some viewers commented that it's unbelievable for a new car to rust this much in just 2 years. Others replied, saying their Geely cars have the same issue. Just like that comment suggested, another Geely owner also complained about their car. After less than 10 years of use, the undercarriage has rusted so badly that it's practically ready for the scrapyard. In the video, you can see that the metal structure under the car has severely corroded and become thinner, with large sections completely missing. The owner expressed frustration, saying, "I'm not trying to badmouth domestic cars, but look at this. Is this even usable? It's only been a few years, and it's entirely rusted through. There are holes everywhere, and the rear axle is about to fall off. How can I still drive like this?" It's widely known that Chinese car quality is poor, but inside China, public opinion is tightly controlled. Authorities delete posts and manipulate comments to silence dissenting voices. Some car owners even face legal action for speaking out about their issues. Meanwhile, automakers flood social media with paid content and patriotic marketing, creating a false image of prosperity for China's auto industry. While these tactics might fool domestic consumers, they don't hold up internationally. Now, even Russia, where Chinese cars hold 60% of the market, is losing patience. Russian media have exposed serious quality issues, reporting that Chinese cars don't even last half as long as German brands. The Russian government is now taking action, imposing restrictions on Chinese automakers. It seems that after Donald Trump took office, China's strategic importance to Russia has diminished, marking the end of a so-called honeymoon phase between the two countries. Recently, the Russian automotive media outlet Autonews published a test report revealing major defects in several Chinese car brands. The study was conducted by Russia's Lamark Automotive Corrosion Center, which tested cars from 17 different brands across 26 regions in Russia over several years. The lineup included European brands like Skoda, Opel, Peugeot, Volkswagen, Audi, BMW, and Mercedes, as well as Chinese brands like Great Wall, Geely, Chery, FAW, GAC, Chang'an, and Dongfeng. The results showed that European car metals typically last around 12 years, and with anti-corrosion coatings, they can last up to 20 years. In contrast, 5 of the Chinese brands tested had no corrosion protection at all, with noticeable rust appearing in just 2 years. Some metal components in these Chinese cars lasted only a quarter as long as those in European cars. On average, Chinese cars in Russia last between 5 and 7 years, with only a few exceeding 10 years. According to data from the research firm J.D. Power, the average lifespan of privately owned cars in the US, Japan, and Germany is around 11 years. In comparison, Chinese cars last less than 5 years, aligning with Russia's findings. Russian media have also criticized Chinese automakers for poor after-sales service and disorganized parts supply. Some reports mention that certain Chinese car models have only been sold in Russia for 5 years, yet their spare parts are already out of production. As a result, Russian car owners struggle to find replacements. Mechanics in Russia even have to use 5 different wrench sizes just to work on Chinese vehicles, with some screws and fittings requiring brand-specific tools available only at authorized dealerships. In contrast, international brands like Toyota, Volkswagen, and Hyundai don't have these issues. With just a VIN number, you can easily find the right parts, even for cars that are 20 years old. Their repair tools and screws also follow standard specifications. The Russian Association of Automotive Engineers concluded from these tests that Chinese-made cars perform poorly in Russia's climate and road conditions, falling short even compared to some older Russian domestic brands. For years, Russian industry insiders and consumers have complained that while Chinese cars come with many features, they tend to develop problems like abnormal noises and rust after just a few years. Even new energy vehicles haven't solved the issue of rapid rusting. A popular Russian automotive YouTuber with over 1 million followers also criticized Chinese brands. He said, "They don't care about maintaining their brand reputation. Their goal is just to sell us cars, not to provide proper after-sale service." Previously, Autonews reported on a survey about Chinese cars, revealing widespread dissatisfaction. About 42% of respondents felt that Chinese manufacturers didn't account for Russia's harsh winters in their corrosion protection. Another 24% complained that the paint coating was too thin. Around 29% believed that electronic components and spare parts were of poor quality, while 28% said the suspension was too fragile for Russia's rough roads. Recently, even the Russian government has issued strong criticism of Chinese car quality. assembly. According to Russian media, on February 5th, Russia's Minister of Industry and Trade, Anton Alikhanov, stated at a government meeting that an investigation into imported trucks found that 3 Chinese brands failed to meet regulations and should not even be allowed on the road. However, he did not name the brands. Alikhanov said that the ministry will take action, including revoking licenses and working with the Prosecutor General's office, calling these measures necessary. He also noted that Russia's future demands for trucks may decrease by a quarter, suggesting that limiting Chinese truck imports could help prevent oversupply in the market. According to reports, Alikhanov pointed out that Chinese car makers have been aggressively expanding into the Russian market, consistently increasing their market share. While the government has tried measures like adjusting recycling fees to balance the market, he admitted that these efforts were not enough. Stricter certification processes were needed, especially to ensure that mass-produced vehicles comply with regulations. Regarding consumer complaints about rust issues, industry experts have suggested that to cut costs, some Chinese manufacturers may be using cheaper single-sided galvanized steel or even ordinary cold-rolled steel, which has weaker corrosion resistance. When exposed to moisture and rain, rust spreads from these weak points. In contrast, European cars generally have sturdier chassis structures and use higher quality materials, even opting for double-sided galvanized steel or chrome-plated steel. With better materials and rust protection, their cars are more resistant to corrosion, even after prolonged exposure to the elements. This difference is directly related to their longer lifespan. Beyond material quality, manufacturing processes also play a key role in preventing rust. European automakers follow strict procedures during the painting process to ensure an even and durable coating. Their production lines have precise controls over paint pressure, temperature, and baking times. Some brands even use a dual coating technique, painting parts once before assembly and again after, to strengthen the finish and improve rust resistance. In contrast, some Chinese automakers, aiming to cut production costs, may simplify these steps by reducing the number of paint layers or skipping certain pre-treatment processes. While these shortcuts may not be noticeable immediately, over time they significantly impact a vehicle's ability to resist corrosion. Another reason why Chinese cars rust easily lies in the details of their assembly. Welding points and screw holes, for example, may not be properly finished. Welds may have rough edges, or screw holes may not be fully sealed. These small defects might go unnoticed at first, but in wet or humid conditions, they become entry points for rust. This is why, despite the rapid growth of China's new energy vehicle industry, many consumers describe Chinese cars as flashy but lacking substance. Manufacturers focus on exterior features, huge touchscreens, refrigerators, and luxury seating, but fall short in fundamental mechanical quality and craftsmanship. Since Western sanctions forced most European, American, Japanese, and Korean automakers to exit Russia in 2022, Chinese brands have rushed in to fill the gap. However, as sales have grown, so have complaints about quality. In 2023, Russian media reported that repairs on Chinese cars increased by 35%, with nearly every Chinese brand sold in Russia experiencing higher failure rates. The most common issues included malfunctioning electronic components, rust on the body and chassis, and overall durability problems. Russian experts have even stated that Chinese cars are not well suited for Russia's climate and road conditions. In early November, Kommersant, one of Russia's top 3 business newspapers, published an article titled "Russian Taxi Drivers Are Unhappy with Chinese Cars." The report highlighted that Chinese cars are the least durable in the taxi industry, while European and Korean vehicles typically last between 250,000 and 300,000 kilometers before retirement. Chinese taxis start breaking down after just 150,000 kilometers. The article pointed out that Chinese cars still lag behind Western brands in terms of quality, especially in engine lifespan, corrosion resistance, and performance in low temperatures. Russian automotive experts noted that European and American car engines typically last over 10 years, whereas Chinese engines often fail after just 5 to 7 years. One taxi company reported that 70% of their Chinese vehicles experienced transmission failures within a short period. Maintenance was also problematic due to limited service options and counterfeit parts. A Russian taxi driver was quoted saying, "These cars don't last nearly as long, yet they're overpriced and simply not worth the money." Kommersant is an influential newspaper in Russia, primarily read by business professionals and white-collar workers. The fact that it openly criticized Chinese cars suggests that there may be deeper implications behind the message. At the end of last year, after Russia released its passenger car sales data from November 2024, Russian consumers gave 5 major criticisms of Chinese car brands. 1. Lack of core technology. Many consumers pointed out that Chinese cars lag behind European and Japanese brands in key areas like engine performance and chassis turning. Comments mentioned phrases like core technology isn't solid and the chassis is a weak point, reflecting doubts about the mechanical quality of Chinese vehicles. 2. Reliability and durability issues. There were concerns about the long-term reliability of Chinese cars, especially with electronic control systems and engine durability. Test drivers reported issues like screen lag and system reboots, indicating that electronic stability needs improvement. 3. Incomplete after-sales service. Some reviews noted that Chinese automakers still lack a comprehensive after-sales service system, which is a crucial part of long-term customer satisfaction. Currently, Chinese brands have yet to match the service levels of European and Japanese automakers. 4. Quality stability problems. Consumers felt that Chinese cars struggled in extreme weather conditions. Issues like electronic system failures and autonomous driving malfunctions were particularly concerning in Russia's harsh climate. 5. Flashy features but poor driving experience. Some buyers commented that Chinese cars had fancy features but don't work properly, meaning that while these vehicles come with high-end configurations, the actual user experience falls short. Many Russian consumers see Chinese cars as stylish but lacking in substance. Despite these concerns over quality, Russia, still facing Western sanctions, has had to rely on Chinese vehicle imports. In 2024, Russia remained China's largest car export market. Last year, China exported 1.17 million vehicles to Russia, a 30.5% increase from the previous year, with export revenues reaching $15.2 billion. Chinese cars now hold 68% of the Russian market, and 8 out of the top 10 best-selling brands in Russia come from China. However, the outlook for Chinese brands in Russia in 2025 is turning less favorable. According to a Russian auto market report released on February 11th, total passenger car sales in Russia for January 2025 reached 89,070 units, an 11% increase from the previous year. The data showed that Russia's domestic brand Lada remained in first place, with sales rising 23% to over 27,000 units. China's Haval ranked second, with a 23% increase to 11,800 units. It took third place with an 8,900 unit sales volume, growing by just 1.8%. Meanwhile, Geely suffered a major setback, with sales plummeting 31% to 6,220 units. Chery's sub-brand Omoda and Great Wall's Tank also saw declines of 12.8% and 3.5% respectively. Signs of a slowdown had already appeared by the end of 2024. Since November, Chinese car sales in Russia have been declining, and the trend is becoming more pronounced. Chery's overall sales fell by 2.2%, with its Omoda model dropping by 30.7%. Chang'an sales declined by 5.3%, while Geely's sales were down by 3.8%. One major reason behind this downturn is Russia's policy adjustments targeting Chinese car brands. Since October 1st, 2024, the Russian government has implemented an increase in automotive recycling fees, with the first phase raising rates by 70 to 85%. This policy, set to continue until 2030, will increase fees by another 10 to 20% annually. As a result, taxes on Chinese imports have surged, directly affecting retail prices and sales. Beyond tax hikes, Russia has also introduced other measures that raise costs for Chinese automakers. These include requiring importers to pay deposits for OTTS certification, warranty reserve funds, and the mandatory installation of GLONASS satellite positioning system. Additionally, restrictions on parallel imports and stricter tax compliance requirements have further increased financial pressure on Chinese car brands. The situation worsened at the end of November last year when Donald Trump secured victory in the U.S. presidential election. In a swift move to align with Trump, Vladimir Putin immediately imposed a 55% tariff on Chinese hardware products and auto parts starting December 1st. This announcement sent shockwaves through the international community and caught China completely off guard. The combination of these trade measures and growing domestic criticism of Chinese car quality has contributed to the decline in Chinese auto sales in Russia. But it's not just car exports that are facing setbacks. Recent unusual developments between China and Russia suggest that their supposedly unbreakable alliance is beginning to show cracks. Since last fall, Russia has suddenly started conducting comprehensive inspections of China-Europe freight trains, confiscating large amounts of Chinese goods. Some shipments were slapped with heavy fines. Many Chinese businesses, despite Russia being a so-called strategic partner, found themselves at the mercy of these near-predatory actions, while Beijing remained powerless to intervene. Reports indicate that in October 2024, Russia expanded its list of banned transit goods, completely prohibiting the passage of military-related products. Violators faced fines and full confiscation of shipments. However, in practice, Russian authorities began applying the rule far more broadly, seizing not only military-related items but also civilian goods that could potentially have military applications. The restrictions particularly targeted machinery like engines, as well as electronics, communication devices, optical equipment, and even clothing and footwear. Beyond adding new items to the transit ban, Russia has also expanded the authority and scope of its enforcement. In addition to seizing restricted goods, customs inspections caused major delays for other shipments, forcing businesses to pay high port storage fees. Some goods have been stuck in customs for over 3 months, with businesses calling the new restrictions a death blow to the China-Europe freight route. A diplomatic meeting between Russia and China on January 9th led to the partial release of a few containers, but the majority remained stuck, with storage fees accumulating. Analysts suggest that while Russian officials have long engaged in extorting Chinese businesses, there may be deeper reasons behind these actions. Russia, restrained by war and economic sanctions, is facing rising inflation and declining international influence. Putin is eager to end the war and sees Trump as his best chance. His strategy appears to be offering diplomatic concessions to Trump in hopes that the U.S. will pressure Ukraine into accepting a peace deal on Russia's terms. This theory holds weight, as Trump views China as America's primary rival, whereas Putin is a figure who can be easily swayed. With growing signs of cooperation between Trump and Putin, Beijing is watching closely and making its own calculations. China has already announced that Xi Jinping will visit Russia in May to attend the 80th anniversary of the Soviet victory in World War II. Whether Trump and Putin will join forces against China will likely become clearer at that time.